Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Angry Jay here, and I'm back with my team breakdown series. Today's subject is the New Jersey Devils, but before I get into that, I just want to talk very briefly about the trade today that involved my favorite team, the San Jose Sharks, where they received Erik Karlsson for Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, Josh Norris, Rudolph Spalsers, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a conditional second-round pick. I think this is a really good trade for the Sharks. They traded some depth players and some non-elite prospects, along with hopefully a late first-round pick and a late second-round pick for one of the top defensemen in the league. I think this is a really nice trade. They didn't give up anything substantial. It's kind of reminiscent of the Joe Thornton trade, where, yeah, the Sharks gave up, obviously 3 NHL players in that deal, but they got the best player, and they never really missed those other 3 guys. They still have Joe Thornton to this day, and he's been a huge part of this organization for the San Jose Sharks. So I think this is a trade in a very similar ilk, and I love it. So that was just my 2 cents on it. Moving on to today's subject, New Jersey Devils. This is actually a really important time for the Devils in real life history. In 1992-93, they were really setting the groundwork for a future dominant team, because before that they were a league doormat for several years, and 92-93 they made the playoffs with a 40-37-7 record, good enough for 87 points and 4th in the division, where they then lost the semifinal in the division to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think it was 4-1, but the next year they played the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final, lost in 7 in overtime, and then the year after that they won the Stanley Cup, beating the Detroit Red Wings in a 4-game sweep that really surprised the hockey world and brought in a new era of hockey, trap hockey, defensive hockey, X's and O's, very strategic type of hockey. So this team is really the framework of it. A lot of these guys wouldn't go on to be on the team, these starters at least, but they have some guys on their bench, and they really developed nicely to help the Devils eventually obtain their first Stanley Cup. So back to the 94 version. At home, New Jersey has a average home ice advantage, so they're going to be okay at home. They'll get some nice bonuses, but nothing overwhelming. And on the road, though, they're going to have a lot more trouble. They have a high disadvantage, so they're going to face some substantial penalties. If you can avoid it, if you can help it, try to avoid taking the Devils on the road and just try and keep them at home. They play a lot better at home. On the road, they can play some real duds, and there might be some games where you might not have a lot you can do about that. So try to use them at home, and try to use them against teams like St. Louis, the Islanders, Hartford, just other Tier 5 teams, because that's where New Jersey sits. Like a lot of these Patrick Division teams, New Jersey's in the lower part of the NHL 94 tier list. There's only 6 tiers. Jersey's a Tier 5, so they're not obviously better than a whole lot of other teams. You can stretch them out against Pittsburgh, Washington, and Edmonton. I think they match up pretty well there because of their defense and ability to limit other teams on offense, obviously. And then you can actually take them up against Quebec. Quebec isn't an overwhelming team for New Jersey. They don't skate very well. A lot of the upper echelon teams skate really well. Quebec is not one of those teams, and they're not necessarily great on defense either. So I think New Jersey can hang in that one. Some reasons you might want to pick New Jersey: they have a very stout and skilled blue line. It seems like it's a common theme in Tier 4, Tier 5. Big CB checking defensemen with skill. That seems to be a collective strength among those teams. I think New Jersey's forwards complement each other rather well. Unlike Washington, where it can be a little weird trying to get those guys working together, I think New Jersey does a pretty good job of it. They also have a great manual goaltender, Chris Terreri. He's one of the better ones in the league, especially among lower-rated goalies. They also have several CB checking options, whether it be defense or forward. There's a lot of guys on the bench that can move just well enough to be involved on defense and CB check a lot of other people in this tier. And lastly, just as collectively as a team, from forward to defense to goalie, they're very good on defense. You can lock down with them. Other teams in this tier aren't nearly as balanced. Pittsburgh has bad manual goalie. Hartford has bad manual goalie. St. Louis doesn't have an overwhelming defense. Washington, terrible goalie. So I think New Jersey puts all the pieces together rather nicely on defense. Weaknesses for Jersey: they lack speed and agility. They don't have anybody with a higher than 4 rating on either of those skills. If you're unfamiliar with the rating system, go ahead and look in the description below the video. I break it down there. There's 7 different ranges for where attributes can lie. 5 and 6. It's a scale out of 6. So guys with 5 and 6 ratings, I consider those elite because there's very few of those in the game. New Jersey has none of those guys when it comes to skating, and they also have a lack of skill as well. Only Stéphane Richet's 5 shot power and Scott Stevens 5 checking are elite. Everything else is pretty basic in New Jersey, so you're gonna have to work really hard to get results with them. And that's another thing that's I consider a weakness is they can't just overwhelm teams offensively and take over the game. They have to really work for everything they get. Also, they don't have any pure weight bug options. They don't have a guy that's like Joey Juneau or Andrei Kovalenko sitting on the bench waiting to get put into the lineup. They have some middle weights. They have some cheap CB check guys, and that's really all you get. And then lastly, I think New Jersey is pretty soft on the road, as touched on before. Just try to avoid taking them on the road if you can help it. So, talking about the forward lines now, I think this is your best bet here. You got Valery Zelepukin on the left. You have to bring him in off the bench. You'll have to slide Richet over to the center, and then also slide C-Mac out of center, which is his default spot, and put him on the right wing. I think this is the most balanced line. It's easily the most skilled line, and it's probably also one of your better skating lines, even though C-Mac is a little slow. So let's look at Valery Zelepukin here. He is a pretty standard option on the wing. Only 4 agility, 4 speed, so nothing alarming there, but nothing crippling for sure. 4 offensive awareness is decent, but his real weakness is his shooting. Only 3 power, 3 accuracy. He's gonna have to get in close, but that's not necessarily easy for him because he only has 4 stick handling, and he's 188 pounds. And in this tier, there are a lot of really good CB checking defensemen. So you might want to just hang out on the wings with him and use his 4 passing and his 4 agility to kind of dance around looking for passing lanes. And then, if somebody just leaves the zone wide open for you, then you can cut him with Zelepukin. But otherwise, I would try and play a rather perimeter-based game with him. And on defense, I think he's probably one of the better defensive forwards on this team. Even though he's not much of a weight bug checker, his skating just allows him to keep up with other players more effectively than some other guys on this roster. So keep him out on the perimeter, and try not to let him get body checked because he's your best back checker. And if you can help keep him on his skates, that'll help you play defense if you lose the puck. Stéphane Richet, he is the most obvious player to put center here on this team by far. 4 agility, 4 speed, so he's a decent skater. Right-handed shot, so this doesn't necessarily go well with Zelepukin. You're more so going to want to use your right wing to try and feed Richet, but there may be some opportunities for Zelepukin to do it as well. Just keep in mind, right-handed shooters tend to get fed more easily by their right wingers for one-timers. And that's going to be Richet's main mode of attack, as his 5 shot power and 3 shot accuracy allows for some devastating one-timer action. It can be really tough for manual goalies to react to Stéphane Richet's 5 shot power, but with 3 accuracy, you're going to miss your fair share of chances as well. And only 4 offensive awareness. He'll fill the lane more often than not, but maybe not as often as you would hope for. And with only 3 passing and 4 stick handling at 212 pounds, he's not a great one-on-one player. Just cut right through the middle of the zone with. You kind of got to be patient with him. Try and find situations where you can maybe go one-on-one with somebody who's maybe a similar weight or just not in a good position to defend you outright. So Richet, mostly slap shots and one-timers are the way to go. And he's not much of a CV checker with only a 2 check rating. So he's not going to be able to go in and forecheck in a lot of these situations because tier 4, tier 5 guys on defense are about the same rate as Richet, so you're going to be relegated to poke checking a lot. So it's just better to let your wingers go in and do the forechecking for Richet and let him just kind of hang out in the middle, hopefully, for easy one-timers off those turnovers. Lastly, Alexander C-Mac, we'll see his weakness here pretty early with 4 agility and only 3 speed. 3 speed, not great. It's one of the things that limits New Jersey's ability to go up the ladder. If they had just a better skater here, it would really help them out. But C-Mac does bring some good skills to the table. 4 offensive awareness, 4 defensive awareness, only 3 shot power, but the extra boost in accuracy at 4 is a welcome increase from Zelepukin's rather abysmal type shooting. 4 passing, 4 stick handling, so you're getting the same skills out on the wing. So you're going to get a good playmaker, 188 pounds. You just got to be careful of those CB checkers in this tier. Like I said, it's a recurring theme, but it's a very important one to remember because C-Mac does have the nice agility to try and wiggle free, but it you really shouldn't get too brave with him. You shouldn't be trying to cut through the slot with him left and right. You want to mainly use him as a playmaker and as a defensive pest, because usually he's in pretty good position and he can harass those larger defensemen in this tier. And I really think these three guys are easily the best three forwards on this team. You can maybe switch C-Mac and Zelepukin around, but other than that, I'd probably leave these guys alone. But unless you are so inclined to be a CB checker and just increase the utility of this team even further in that direction, Claude Lemieux is a certain option. He's got 4 agility, 4 speed, 4 offensive awareness, 4 shot power, but the real issue here with him is, well, the first one, he has a couple of them, is 2 shot accuracy. He is going to be really inconsistent on offense. He's not much of a passer either at 3. He's not much of a stick handler with a 3. So he's kind of a black hole on offense. He's also going to have a real tough time getting close to the net at 228 pounds. He is a target for weight bug checkers, and by weight bug checkers, I mean anybody that weighs 212 pounds or less, and that's most of the game, unfortunately, especially guys who actually see the ice in 94. So Claude Lemieux, he's not a great offensive player at all. And he's a good CB checker, not great. 3 checking, 228 pounds, 4-4 skating. At forward, it's decent, it's good, but I don't know if I would really sacrifice that much offensive utility to get a little extra CB checking when the defense already has this covered in spades. And we'll look at the defense here in a minute and how they have that covered so easily. So Claude Lemieux, your CB check option. Other option you can consider is Peter Stastny. He's pretty much C-Mac, just a little bit heavier, 4 agility, 3 speed, but at 212 pounds as opposed to C-Mac's 188. Stastny's not going to be as good of a skater because heavier players have a harder time stopping, starting, and turning compared to lighter weight players. So there's no real obvious upgrade here with Stastny because everything else is pretty much the same. 3 shot power, 4 accuracy, 4 passing, 4 stick handling. You don't really need the extra CB checker here, and he's not really a good enough skater to utilize it a whole lot. So he's a good bench option, nothing more. Holik, kind of the same deal. The only nice thing about him is he has 4 speed. Not a lot of guys on the bench here have 4 speed, but he does. Excuse me. Everything else is very average. 3 ratings across the board. 220 pounds, 3 checking. He's going to be a good CB checker, but with only 3 agility, he's going to have some issues as well, trying to chase down those more nimble players. So I wouldn't necessarily want to start him. He's just a decent bench guy. And then you also have John McClain. He's one of your better shooters on the bench, but nothing about him is outstanding. And then lastly, presuming C-Mac or Zelepukin gets hurt and you just want another playmaker out there, Bernie Nichols is probably your best bet. 3 agility, 3 speed, so the downgrade in skating will be noticeable, but 4 offensive awareness, 3 shot power, 2 accuracy. Also, that downgrade will be noticeable, but the 4 passing and 4 stick handling will be very comparable to what C-Mac and Zelepukin were doing. 188 pounds. So you're essentially getting the same player, just a little bit slower and not as dangerous of a shooter, which isn't a huge downgrade when you talk about going to the bench of a tier 5 team. So those are your main sub options, but these 3 guys I think should definitely be in your lineup every game at forward. For defense, it's a little bit more convoluted, but I still think the top 2 guys are pretty obvious, especially if you love to CB check. CB checking is when you're using a heavier player and you're trying to check a lighter weight player who has the puck. If you're unfamiliar with that technique or what a CB check is, I have a video that I made a couple months ago, so feel free to watch that. It's 6 or 7 minutes, so it won't take up too much of your time. But Scott Stevens, he is a CB checking champion. 4 agility, 4 speed, 4 defensive awareness. So he's going to be back on defense more often than not. 4 shot power, 2 accuracy, which is really good for a defenseman. But also, what's really good for a defenseman is 4 passing, 4 stick handling. In this tier, these are some fantastic ratings. And 228 pounds, 5 checking, he is Bork-esque. If he can lay a check on somebody, and with his mobility, there's a good chance that he will CB them into the next week. They might not ever see the game. It might be an Eric Lindros situation, where Paul Correa situation where guys just lay on his back and you might not see him again in that game. Stevens is an absolute force, whether in user control or in AI mode, because that 5 checking means he's going to run around and just knock people right out. Only issue that you need to keep in mind with Scott Stevens is if you try to use him as an offensive defenseman, he is very accessible to weight bug checkers, and it's the same situation as Claude Lemieux. There's a lot of players in this game, 212 pounds or less, so just be careful, pick your spots, and you're better off probably just using his passing and stick handling to try and wriggle free of something in the defensive zone, and then find your outlet pass or maybe even your home run pass to a streaking forward to kickstart the offense. But Stevens, definite number one option here. Another very competent option in the similar mold, Alexei Kasatonov, 4 agility, 3 speed, so he's a little bit slower, but still a very good player in his own right. 3 defensive awareness, but his skills are really where he shines. 4 shot power, 1 accuracy, 4 passing, 4 stick handling. So you get 2 very skilled defensemen on this team at a very low tier. I think it's really a luxury to have. And 228 pounds, 4 checking, another CB checking monster. He won't be quite as dominant in AI mode with only a 4 checking, but still, I mean, this guy is a beast. Whoever you get on defense, you know they're going to be able to knock the opposing forward or defender out. Also, they're great on the poke check. They're just generally in good position. They take away a lot of passes through the slot. It's just a great defense. They really lock it down, and then if they get the puck on their stick, they're still dangerous. I mean, those passing skills are really nice, and if they ever get loose for a slapper, they can do damage there as well. If you're not a CV checker, which a lot of guys aren't, Bruce Driver is someone you should consider bringing off the bench. 3 agility, 3 speed. Bruce Driver kind of got he didn't really get a fair shake in this game. He had a fantastic year on offense for the Devils, but his skills do not illustrate that. Only 2 shot power, 2 accuracy, 3 passing, and 3 stick handling. Very average, maybe even below average, really. But at 188 pounds, he's the only real weight bug type defenseman, and he's that guy you might want to put out there against St. Louis or Pittsburgh if you don't know how to CB check. Especially because they have a lot of heavier forwards, and Driver is one guy who can play them physically. It's just he's not very fast, he's not very skilled, so he's a very basic defenseman once you get past his ability to body check heavier players. Other players you can look at if injuries arise and you want another CB type player, Fetisov here. Slava Fetisov, fantastic option if you can get past his 2 speed. If you can get past his 2 speed, which is a little bit easier for defensemen to handle, especially in tier 5, might not be as big of an issue. He does have 4 agility, so his first step is going to be pretty nice. He's going to be able to turn pretty nice. It smooths out the lack of speed. The rest of his skills, also really good. 4 shot power, 1 accuracy, 4 passing, 4 stick handling. Essentially the same player as Kasatonov, just 1 tick slower. Excuse me. 4 checking, 228 pounds, CB checker, extraordinaire. That's the only issue. 2 speed. If you can get past it, fantastic sub defenseman to have on your bench. There are other more vanilla type players. I'll just quickly touch on Scott Niedermayer. 3 agility, 3 speed, 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, 3 passing, 3 stick handling. This is before he became a obvious number 1 league-wide defenseman, Norris Trophy winner. This is his younger days, so he's not quite as overpowered. Very basic player, a little bit easier to handle with only 212 pounds, so he's going to be a little bit better skater than maybe, well, probably not anybody, because the other guys on this roster are actually really good at skating. So Niedermayer's just a nice average defenseman, especially in this tier. I mean, they have 5 legitimate options, and then they also have Stanley Cup winner, multiple Stanley Cup winner, Ken Danielko, beat King Raff in a exhibition game, I think it was last year. 2 agility, 2 speed, 4 defensive awareness. That's his real, one of his real strong suits is his defensive play. 1 shot power, 0 accuracy, so don't try and put him on the power play. 2 passing, 2 stick handling. But if you put in Ken Danielko, you're not putting him in for his offense, you're putting him in for his defense. 220 pounds, 4 checking. He is a pretty good CB checking defenseman, provided he can get to somebody. 2 speed, 2 agility, that's pretty tough. He's clearly your 6th defenseman, but you know, he beat King Raff in a game, so if you have some sensibility for that, you might want to throw him out there. Just kidding, King Raff. I know you're playing him pretty nice. He can be a pretty intimidating fellow, not only in real life, but also in NHL 94, as he will CB check any unsuspecting forward. So just keep your eyes open if he's out there on the ice, and he is a Stanley Cup winner, so you have to respect that. So those are the position players for New Jersey. Going into the goalies now, or just the goalie, because really you're only going to use one of them, Chris Terreri. 4 agility, 3 puck control, so that's your rebounds. So he's gonna hold on to the puck, okay, but he'll give up some juicy rebounds, especially the more powerful shots. 3 stick on the right, 3 stick on the left, and then 3 glove on both sides. So this is the real key for Terrari. 156 pounds. He's one of the lightest goalies in the game, and at 4 agility, he is gonna fly around that crease. And he is a dream for manual goalies because of this. He can just bait shooters left and right. His agility, his weight, it's just a perfect combo, really. In AI mode, he's okay. Nothing fantastic. One thing you do have to be careful about when a guy weighs this light, that's a terrible way to say it. When a guy is this light, it's really easy to get rammed into your goal from a bum rushing forward and give up a goal like that. When a guy just crashes into you. So try and play up in your crease a little bit to try and mitigate that. You don't want to stay back in your net too much, especially if a guy's just coming right at you. Try and get out ahead of that a little bit, step up in your crease, and that should help keep the puck out of the net when you get rammed. So Chris Terrari, fantastic goalie, especially for more advanced players. So let's go ahead and review New Jersey here before I let them get some payback on the Islanders. Because in my previous video, the Islanders really ran it up on the Devils, so I'm going to try and return the favor. So with the Devils, you want to assert yourself defensively, top to bottom. Fantastic defensive roster, especially in this tier. So unlike New York Islanders, where I said, let your offense do the work, the Devils, just let your team defense do the work. Work the manual goalie. If you're an advanced manual goalie user, New Jersey's perfect for you. So just don't be afraid to use Terrari. With Richer, you want to use a quantity of shots over a quality of shots. He has only 3 shot accuracy, so the more chances you put on net, or the more chances you attempt to put on net, the more chances he will put on net. If you only rely on a couple shots a game, he might not hit the net on those couple shots, and then you're out of luck. On the wing, you want to be tricky with your wingers. This is a very CB checking dominant tier that New Jersey is in, and they have lightweight wingers, 188 pounds each, so they are definitely accessible to those bigger defensemen. So just use their agility, use their playmaking ability to bait defensemen into committing themselves physically, and then you can attack the net that way, or just find the open man with a pass. Also, with New Jersey, just integrate your defenders on offense where and when you can. I'm not saying you need to go on these coast to coast rushes like Phil Housley or Paul Coffey, but they got good skills. If you can get them into the offense, do it, because they're going to help you there. And also with New Jersey, just try and take away your opponent's speed. Just use your neutral zone and forechecking to just cut down plays before they even get started, because New Jersey does have a lack of speed. They do have issues handling speed, so what you want to do is you want to nullify that speed before it even gets going. So do the best you can with that, and that should help you be successful in New Jersey. And we're going to go into this matchup here with the Islanders. And so one thing I've been noticing with the tier 4, tier 5, and I've already touched on this several times, is these teams, they are a little lackluster on offense, and they're really good on defense. I mean, but it's a more advanced type of defense. And by more advanced, I mean CB checking, because not everybody knows how to CB check. Not everybody wants to know how to CB check. It's more of an acquired type of taste. So if you want to play lockdown defense, but you don't want to CB check, this is not really the tier for you. You want to stay out of this tier. You want to stay more tier 1, tier 2, or maybe just use Boston, who can kind of float around tier 1, tier 2, along with being just a tier 3 team in general. They're kind of an enigma. They're the Philadelphia Eagles of this game. When I talk about Philadelphia Eagles, I mean the Tecmo Super Bowl Philadelphia Eagles, because the Eagles, they rely on the talent of QB Eagles to just overcome the rest of their squad, whereas Boston uses their defense, which is league best, to cover up for a average offense, maybe a little bit above average. And if you can use Ray Bork and he's the forward for Buffalo. Don Sweeney, that's the defenseman for Boston. If you can use the both of them, then you can make Boston a tier 1 team pretty easily, especially at home, because they're just dominant. So if you like to weight bug check, stay out of this tier completely. Do not touch it for any reason. I mean, if you have to play a matchup, know your matchups, obviously, because if someone calls it in a tournament, they call these tier 4, tier 5 teams, you'll obviously have to play it. But if you can avoid it, do so. But if you can't, just at least try and know these rosters a little bit so that maybe you know where you can take advantage of somebody because they can weight bug check. Like with New Jersey, your weight bug checkers are Valery Zelepukin and Alexander Semak. So maybe on defense, you use those two guys to just body check wherever, and then the rest of your team you can just poke check with, instead of not knowing the Devils at all and just randomly trying to body check with everybody, because that's just not going to work with this team. They're gonna fail. They're not going to be the defensive stopper that I promised you that they are, because you're not using them correctly. So that's just, I think, a really key thing to know. And I've been looking at these teams for a while now, doing the research, writing down these attributes so I can present them to you in these videos. And I had to share that. I noticed, within this tier, there are a lot of big, skilled defensemen that, for people who don't know how to CV check, these players might not be for them. So you might want to just, again, avoid them. Stick to your tier 1, your tier 2 matchups, because those teams generally have a lot more options when it comes to weight buggers. They're also just generally faster, so they're just better overall for people who don't want to necessarily think about every little detail in the game. They just want to go out there and play hockey. So that's one key thing to know with this tier. But if you know how to CB check, this might be a tier you really want to focus on, because there's a lot of guys that are really good in this tier. And if you want to play a low event, a low scoring, grind it out type of game, this is the place for you to live. Because there's just, aside from essentially the Islanders, every team here can just straight up play good defense, whether it be, but it's to varying levels. I mean, Washington's defense relies on essentially their defenders. If you rely on their goalies and their forwards, you're probably going to be a little underwhelmed by their performance. Hartford, they have big defensemen, but their goalie's going to let you down. Pittsburgh, forwards and defense, very large. They can CB check everything, but again, manual goalie might let you down because he's just really slow. Tom Barrasso, that is, on Pittsburgh. So that if you just want to grind out some games in the tournament, make guys earn every little bit of ice out there, and make things really tough, then this is where to live, I think. I mean, it's just really obvious, because the offensive players here do not necessarily match up well with the defenders. I mean, New Jersey has a tough time overall scoring, but it's magnified in this tier because there's so many defenders in this tier that I think overpower the forwards. So you really want to be careful with Zelepukin and Semak. You don't want to get too aggressive with them, because they're just going to spend the game on their backs against a seasoned CB checking type of guy, or a guy that can just poke check really well. Because poke checking doesn't matter what you weigh when you poke check. And there's that 3-shot accuracy for Riche. He's just high and outside there. It doesn't matter what you weigh when you poke check somebody. It's just a matter of stick handling. So a lot of these guys, especially on New Jersey, they don't have the stick handling ratings to fend off consistent poke checks. So that's one way to really limit offense as well. And a lot of the defensemen here can skate with these forwards. I mean, St. Louis doesn't have anybody fast. Pittsburgh doesn't have anybody fast. Hartford doesn't have anybody fast. So there's just so many teams in this tier. Average skating forwards, great skating defensemen that can hit, they can play positionally, they're skilled. It was kind of alarming. I didn't really realize it myself until I started looking into it. So right now, New Jersey only got 7 goals in New Jersey. I know they're chomping at the bit to get a few more after the way I ran it up with the Islanders on New Jersey in my previous video. I think I had like 21 goals or something. So see if I can get a few more here with New Jersey. I know they're itching. And actually, back in the early 90s, mid 90s, during their first cup run, they were a surprisingly good offensive team. I mean, people just want to focus on the defense that they played and how they shut things down and limited shots against. But they're actually a very opportunistic offense. They had some good goal scorers on their team, some really offensive-minded players, and they just got contributions up and down the lineup. One thing you'll notice about this team is they don't really have a superstar forward. So you really want to try and use these three forwards together, and I think they do pretty well together because you have these two obvious playmaking wingers who can skate around a little bit and try and create some space to allow Richer to just rip one-timers and or slap shots and on unsuspecting goalies, because his 5-shot power makes it really tough for even manual goalies to get over in time to shut the door. So the more you can get him the puck in situations where he's just getting a chance to let her rip, and I think your offense will definitely take off, because he is your clear goal scorer by far. He's the best goal scorer. He should be utilized as such, and you may want to use the other guys more on defense to poke check and just harass players, and let him kind of do his thing up on offense. Just try not to use him too much, and because he's not super fast, so if you take him all the way back down to the goal line like I just did, it's going to take him a little bit to get back up towards the ice to get in a spot to use a one-timer. So use your wingers up and down the ice. You want them just covering all 200 feet of the ice, and let Richer focus on offense. And I think that'll allow you to maybe be a little bit more effective on offense and make your opponent respect you more there, because if you can keep your opponent on their heels and not knowing what your offense is going to do, it's going to be even tougher for them to score on a rather dominant defensive team like the Devils. So it's just all about maximizing your ability to succeed with this team. They don't just have this easy, Staples like easy button where you just give it to a guy like Alexander McGillney or Jeremy Roenick or Steve Yzerman, and they just take the puck up the ice and do whatever they want some games. You're just never going to have those situations. You got to get everybody working together. You got to optimize them. You got to be aware of what you're doing at all times with this team. It's nothing that you want. You just can't play like it's an arcade game. You just, this guy has the puck, I'm gonna take him all the way up the ice and try to score, and that'll work. It's just not gonna work with New Jersey. You gotta play a little bit smarter with them. Just use it as a team, because they do work well together. So I think it's a sound strategy to use. So New Jersey, I didn't run it up as high as I did with the Islanders on you guys, so I'm sorry about that. But we did shut out New York Islanders. I think I gave up 3 or 4 goals with the Islanders. So you can see here that the defense is just really stout, and the manual goalie, I didn't really get a chance to use it very much. I think I only gave up a few shots. Yeah, 7 shots. So, but Terreri, he's definitely a force back there, and he can be a game changer in the right player's hands. So, New Jersey, not a highly used team in league play or online play. Excuse me, league play or tournament play. But now that you know a little bit more about them, maybe you're going to be more inclined to use them and just test them out. So, hopefully you enjoy them. Hopefully you learned something here, and you enjoyed the video. And if you did, just go ahead and give me a thumbs up or leave a comment if you have any questions, or you just want to voice your opinion at all. I'll be happy to hear it and eventually respond myself. So until I come back with the Philadelphia Flyers, you guys take it easy. All right.